material, and basically this is one of the first few prototypes that we're building, and then we'll be out for demonstration to a dealer near you. So basically we've got the battery pack on the top. You can see it's slightly different case, different color scheme that now matches the 7 Series, which is our new corporate colors. And yeah, you know, it's there and runs. We took it for its first outside test at a car crash test day last week, and we were running it off of batteries just with a single Ethernet connection. You can see that picture actually on our website. Michael's put that into our home page for the 5 Series on our website. And so yeah, just running this off just like you would a 7, running it off of batteries, 1 hour's operation. So yeah, it's there and it's real, and all pretty much very similar, but we'll go through the different features, etc., as we go through the presentation. So with that, what I'll do is share my screen, and hopefully you can see the presentation. I'm just going to rearrange some of my menus here so that I can try and keep an eye on everyone, make sure everyone's okay and not raising their hand. John also keeps an eye out for any comments that you may be typing, or please just interrupt verbally. It's good to hear questions. So let's get focused to that. So really what we're going to do in the next kind of 45 minutes is do a walk around, an overview of the new features. We're going to look at the new case. We're going to look at the battery, because obviously this is a main function that we've added, a really useful function for many of our customers. We've extended the mechanical shutter from the 7 Series onto the 5 Series. We're going to look at SILC, which is now again from the 7 to the 5 as well. We've got a whole new section called GPIO, and we'll dig into that in a little detail actually. And then how to sell the new 5 Series, and you know, I'm sure we all have our approaches, but some suggestions there. So first thing we're going to do is have a walk around, and basically in 2021 we had a corporate image of white with a big green stripe, and we decided to modernize this and go for a new corporate look. And so in 2021 the iSpeed 7 got a refresh. We had a kind of a slanted kind of front end, and we went for a very much upright front end, a completely different look and feel really, and it was natural to extend that change through from the existing 5 Series through to the new 5 Series. And so that's going to be our corporate colors going forwards. On all future cameras will be silver and black with this kind of markings. So this is the camera. You've seen it, me holding it up. I put this here just for later reference, but you can see a profile, you know, side profile, front profile of the camera. All of these images are with the battery installed, so you can see the battery module up here is an option. So for those customers that do not need the battery, they don't have to pay for all the extra battery slots. In the 7, it was integral to the design. In the 5, because we're trying to keep the costs as low as possible, we've made it an option, so you can actually choose to have the battery option or not. The rear panel connections are very, very similar, almost identical to that of the 5 before. And you can see here all of the other layouts, and we'll dig into each detail in the coming slides. So what are the changes? Let's list the changes. So as we've just been discussing, iX consistent branding, the new look and feel. We've had a lot of feedback, thank you everybody, for the mechanism on the XSSD. Some people found the locking mechanism for the door a little bit too flimsy if it got knocked. Some people found that the XSSD would get a little hot during extended save durations and things like this. So the XSSD door has been completely redesigned, a lot more robust. You've got additional cooling inside the camera for the XSSD. So not only, before it was sandwiched in amongst a load of electronics, very dense, but now we've actually moved some of that electronics away. We've got aeration, we've got movement of air inside the camera over the XSSD, so we shouldn't have heat issues anymore with that, which is good news. SILC, obviously this is something we launched with the 7 series 2 years ago, and the first question you get asked by all your customers is that available in the iSpeed 5? Well, now it is, and we can now enjoy the benefits of the SILC control. The big addition, as we've been discussing, is the batteries. You can see that it's a removable battery module, but then also the same as the 7 series, the rear plate removes and you can swap out batteries if need be. New electromechanical shutter, and we'll dig into the detail of that in the coming slides. And so this takes the same lens mounts now as the 7 series. So really we're just, many of the functions that we added to the new 7 series, we're now adding to the new 5 series. And then GPIO functions. As tests have got more advanced, customers have wanted more signals to either control the camera or control accessories. And we'll really dig into this in a lot of detail over the coming slides. One thing I would like to update you on, which certainly I'm quite excited about, is historically we've used Microsoft Surface devices with a rugged jacket for our touchscreen controller. We call it the CDU-E, but we are coming to the conclusion now of a development. It's been quite an extended development, I have to say, but it's now coming to conclusion where this is a complete, our own solution, one cable, powered by the camera, touchscreen. And we'll be releasing this and launching this in the coming months. I've seen it working, I've operated it. The brightness of that screen is phenomenal. So daylight use is really, really fantastic on this device. So super looking forward to that coming out. And then moving on, Canon EF lens mounts we offered customers for remote control of Canon EF lenses. This before required a little bit of a complicated solution, I think we'll all agree, where we had a Ethernet control box, a separate Ethernet connection, separate third-party software, and that would then now allow us to control the Canon lens. Again, in the coming months, that will be completely removed. A connection from the lens mount into the USB of the camera will allow full control of the Canon EF lens with integrated control in our software. So you don't have to run a separate piece of software. Again, I really think this will fit what the customer's expectations are much better. You've got one piece of software to control the entire camera. So we're launching the new 5 series today, but also be aware that these are literally on the very near horizon. And so, yeah, good stuff coming. So the new case, this is an image with the battery inserted. You've seen lots of those already. Here's an image with the battery taken off, and you'll see there's a connector. And so you fit the handle on there, and then that's an operation. You'll see an image of this in a second. But if you order the new 5 series without a battery, you'll see it'll have a step very similar to the old iSeries 5 camera. As I've said before, we've got a much closer image here, just as you can see. We've got a much more robust XSSD door mechanism, an eject mechanism that you can't get to unless you've opened the door, which was a failure point before. We have to, just to give you the background on that, we have to use a standard mount ejection mechanism. And so what would happen is someone would press the eject button and actually break the plastics of the standard eject mechanism. So now that's completely covered until you open the door up, and then you can access the eject mechanism. The amount it ejects is much more. Before, there was very fiddly trying to get hold of the end of the XSSD, and now the actual device pokes out a lot further for you to get hold of. So a lot of it, you know, it's one of those typical things where on the exterior it looks very simple and hardly any changes, but believe me, on the inside there's been a huge number of changes within this camera. And then on the front, you'll see that near the sensor is a whole bunch of connections, very similar to the 7 series, that allow the interface to the mechanical shutter. And so now you can run a mechanical shutter on the 5 series. And again, we'll go into the details of why that's a good feature to have.
Just before you move off the casework, some questions that arose from this morning's session. Obviously not part of this presentation, but people were wanting to know, and it may be useful for the guys here also to know. The first question was about high G options for the camera.
Yep, good questions. So let's talk around that. Currently, this camera is not high G rated. It is our intention in the future to high G test it. We wanted to ensure the camera was out there and running, and you know, in your hands as soon as possible. Down the road, we will high G test it. One of the scary things about high G testing is that you know, there's a possibility that it will fail, and then you need to look at as to why it failed and correct that mechanically. What we didn't want to do is take our first unit that we've made and destroy it. So what we're going to do is we're going to say it's not rated high G at this point, and then we will test it in due course.
But the fact is, Nick, that the design of the camera is such that camera has been designed with high G in mind.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, of course it has. And you know, we've got a high confidence that it will pass the high G testing that we intend to do. It's just we've not done it yet. So yeah, I don't see it being a problem. So yeah, it's good to know.
Okay, thank you for that. The second question arose for the underneath the handle, the connecting pins for the battery pack. What happens if we don't put a handle over the top of those connection pins? Is it a problem? Yeah,
so basically if the camera has no battery pack, it must have a handle fitted, because that's how it loops through the power. And so here I'll undo this handle off this camera here and put it up to the camera. You'll see the handle has a connector in it, and so yeah, that's needed. Now if customers want a lower profile, they themselves can take these 2 screws out and just have this base plate and not the handle in the way. But that we wouldn't naturally propose that, but that could be a solution. And then once that's bolted in, then that makes the connections through from the input voltage to the camera itself.
Great, thanks.
So moving on then to the battery. So really, we just need to make it really clear that this is an optional battery. You don't have to have it. The camera by default comes without a battery, and then you can specify if that is of interest to your customer. So here you can see that there's a back plate and 2 batteries. They're the same profile as the 7 series batteries, but they're half the length. And what that means is that the 7 series will run for 1 hour full operation, and this camera, because it's lower power requirement, will also run for 1 hour full operation on those 2 batteries. So we go through some of the stats here. Twin battery solution. To be clear, same as the 7 series, you need both batteries in the camera for it to run. You can't take one out to swap it from a full battery and like this. They have to be in there together. So if you want to change batteries, you power down the camera, take the batteries out, swap them for new ones, okay? 2 at a time. 1 hour full operation, as we've said. Auto switch over, so this thing can be recording. It won't drop a frame. It will keep on going and just switch to batteries just as you'd expect. Live battery status, of course. Each battery has its own fuel gauge, just the same as the 7 series. You can see a little LCD in the back of the batteries. They're covered by the tabs on this photo, but you can see the little LCD fuel gauge. Of course, the batteries are charged in the camera, so if the camera's on for a few hours, it would have charged up its batteries, and then it's ready for a power failure if there is one. And so, yeah, we can use it as a battery backup or full operation with no power input. So super useful. Yep.
Sorry, just on that point, one of the questions from this morning on batteries was concerning the shipping of batteries and the power of the batteries for shipping and the concerns there. So I know obviously people move these cameras around a lot. It might be worth going through that just quickly as well, please.
Yeah, so basically, obviously, lithium-ion batteries are restricted in their power density for shipping. 96 watt hours, I believe, is kind of the maximum of shipping. And these are, the iSpeed 7s are 96 watt hours, and these are half that size. So they're only kind of, 40, 50 watt hour batteries. So in regards to shipping, we would always encourage you to leave the batteries in the camera. It's actually deemed safer that way. They're contained. There's less chance of piercing, etc. But obviously, if they're shipped, flown, aeroplane shipping, then they need the battery sticker on there that you'll always see from our products. So yeah, they're not flight restricted. It's good to ship. So if you order a camera with a battery at purchase time, you will get it just completely installed as if it were one lump. You don't have to install it yourself. You will get it with the top box on, with a handle in place, and it will just work fine as a complete solution. If your customer wants to order it after first purchase, then they can order a battery box with 2 batteries, and they can then install the battery themselves. It's made to be customer installation. There's no kind of technical things other than an Allen wrench, just a hexagon wrench to install the unit. So the first step would be to remove the handle from the top of the camera with no battery. You then move the fixings of the handle from the inner positions to the outer positions. And so there's 2 fixing positions. You then take the battery module and you affix it to the top of the camera using the 4 Allen wrenches that go on there to fit it into position. This makes, with the electrical connector there, the green connector, and then you replace the handle onto the top of the camera battery box with the fixings in the outer position, and then install the batteries in for final running. Okay, so it's pretty easy to just upgrade it. It takes 1 minute to do this, and it's customer friendly, etc. So the nice thing with this is if your customer's trying to keep the initial purchase price low and then later on add batteries, this is a great opportunity to do that. So yeah, nice and easy. Mechanical shutter. So basically we've added the same connection scheme as that of the iSpeed 7, and so the standard lens plates that now are iSpeed 7 compatible are now compatible with the 5 series. And so these pogo pins pick up on the connections under the sensor and will allow the control of the electromechanical shutter. This enables 2 more lens mounts for the 5 series, as it did with the 7 series. So an FD and an FG. And so now if I move on, and I'll come back to the questions, John, regarding PIV and range and stuff like that. But just to wrap this up very quickly, this was what we had before. We had 4 lens options: FD, FG. So FD was for Nikon Fs that had an aperture ring, and so you can control the aperture via the ring on the lens. FG, to remind you, is for those without an aperture ring, and you can use the control knob on the top here to open and close the aperture on the lens. Canon EF mount, soon going to be USB. Woo. And then C mount for microscopy use and borescopes and things like that, high mag lenses, etc. So now with the new 5 series, we've now added 2 further lenses to that combo, with the FD having a shutter and the FG having a shutter. So when you look at your 5 series and you see 6 different lens options, you now understand what they're all for. So so just a step back, we're going to talk about why do we need a shutter? It was one of the questions from this morning's presentation.
Just one quick question.
Yep.
If you don't purchase the lens mount with the shutter, you still have the connector on the back in case you want to further upgrade to lens mount with the shutter.
All cameras will have the connector pins there ready for future upgrade. So if customer orders a new iSpeed 5 with a standard FD mount, the pins will be on the camera, so you'll still have these connections here ready.
Right.
And then if they later buy the mount with a electromechanical shutter, then it will work.
Fantastic, thank you.
Excellent. So why do we need shutters? And you know, this is often a question. Some people will be very familiar with them, some people will be less familiar. So let's just dig into that really. There's 3 main areas of use for a shutter. Let's talk about ranges to start off with, military ranges. You may be out there, your camera, for safety's sake, is kilometers or miles, depending on where you're from, away. And you want to do another calibration on the camera, and the last thing you want to do is run out in a Jeep or a vehicle to cover the lens and do a calibration. So having the ability to mechanically obscure the sensor for a black cow is really super good, and allows you to kind of allows you to do that remote calibration. One of the other features we also like is if you turn the camera off or you disable it in the software, the shutter shuts, and it means when you change lens, if you're in a dusty environment, you're protecting the sensor from dust ingress during the lens change. So you can now take the lens off, knowing before you take the lens off and quickly cover it with your hand, and then you know, put the new lens on. And there's always the potential, if it's a windy day, for dust to get in the front. Now with the shutter mount, it's secure. So that's shutters for large military ranges. DIC. DIC requires calibration at the beginning, and you calibrate the camera's position, and if the camera moves at any amount, the calibration will then be corrupt for your analysis. Even going up and putting the lens cap on a lens, it means you may have twisted the lens very slightly or moved it. The calibration now is invalid. So what we're doing is enabling you to do a black reference calibration without touching the camera. And so that really is important, that you can say, you know what, I'm not going to go in there, I'm not going to move, I'm not even going to touch the camera. I can just do a black reference with the electromechanical shutter enabled. And then the third use is for PIV users. Often for PIV, we're using high power lasers, and when during setup, you know, the operators are wearing laser safety glasses, and but often the camera isn't wearing glasses, obviously. And so if during the setup something reflective is used in the way of the laser, and the laser is reflected back into the sensor, you'll damage the sensor. And we've seen a couple of customers do this, where they've created reflection arcs across and burnt pixels. They've fired and made a pixel cluster burnt. So what the shutter allows you to do, and you can manually shut it and open it in the software, and it allows you to protect the sensor until you're ready for the test. You can do all of your operations. You can say, right, we're definitely sure there's going to be no reflections from the laser into the sensor. I can now open the shutter. I know I'm safe. And it saves an awfully big bill replacing the sensor on this camera. So lots of positive reasons why we need to buy sensor shutters for these cameras. Okay, moving on to the next section. We're looking at SILC. Now, basically, this was introduced a couple of years ago in the 7 series, and it's been very well received. I think there's two kind of areas really, and I'm going to try and address that going forward. One is that when it's demonstrated and spoke about in an engineering term, it's well received. But I think because maybe some people are not so confident with it, trying to explain its benefits and what it's all about is somewhat of a challenge. And so I think what we're going to be doing going forwards is I'm going to be making a customer facing presentation that talks through this. So you can say to the customer, there's this thing called SILC, I'm not the expert, please let me go through a few slides with you, and then they can really engage with that. If there's any further assistance required, of course, we can set up a video conference and we can go through the real nitty-gritty electronics of all this additional functionality. But it's important because we'll get to it at the end of the presentation. I really want to start pushing this SILC. I think it's a real benefit, and it's something our competition doesn't have. It's super important that we push it. If we don't understand it, we can push a presentation that does. So that's something that we're looking going forwards. SILC used to come out of 1B and C, and now we can take it out of any GPIO, and we'll move on to GPIO in the next slide. The point here is that it's much more programmable. It can fit your customers' requirements a lot more flexibly and move forward. So GPIO, this is a whole new section. And just by the way, this isn't GPIO just for the 5 series, it's also GPIO in the 7 series. So future software updates of new 7 series cameras will get GPIO. Okay, and that's if the customer's running the multi-DAC software. Just like SILC is with multi-DAC only, GPIO is the same. Okay, so it's an advanced functionality. So what is GPIO? General Purpose Input Output is the acronym. But the point here is that many of our customers would say, I just need a pin to start recording going. I just need a pin to turn my lights on and off. I just need a pin to light up a bulb to say that I'm recording. there's lots of these kind of things. And actually, in 90% of the cases, it's a very simple functionality that really does enable advanced functions with the camera. So let's dig into this list. You know, some will make sense to you in terms of what they do, some might make less sense, but we're going to go through and explain where we would use them, why we would use them. So we're going to go through a list in turn. Please bear with me. This is a little more engineering, but again, I'm going to make a presentation that you can use in front of the customer with this stuff if need be. Exposure out is something we've had for many years. This enables the customer to see when the camera is exposing to light, and is great for aligning illumination and lasers and all this kind of stuff. So exposure out is a known. SILC out is something that we've known about for a couple of years. It's the ability to control the pulse position and the pulse size for detailed lighting and laser control. Record flag out. So sometimes the customer wants to know, is this camera recording or not? They could put it on an interlock or something like this. If you've got a car crash test facility and it says I've got 10 cameras, it could then say, I won't release the sled until I've got all 10 cameras recording, and it can gate them. And these are the kind of systems that people are asking for. So only when all the cameras record flags are high will it enable the next step of the test to happen. So again, about positive confirmation of a successful test.
Could that be used for like a laser interlock as well, Nick, on a door?
Yep. Yeah, so you could say, you know what, you won't be allowed to fire the laser until the camera is recording, for example. It's not an interlock like the door. The lasers have that interlock, not the camera.
Right.
We have a pulse out, and this is, I'm very excited by this, I have to say, a bit strangely, but basically, take the scenario that you've got 3 cameras downrange, okay? It's so far downrange, it's 5 kilometers downrange. You're not going to start running 5 kilometers or 3 miles of cables downrange. You're using an Ethernet transmission device to get your wireless link to the cameras that are 3 miles downrange. Now you've got a problem, because you've got to trigger those cameras and you want the T0 times to be aligned. If you have a camera, 3 cameras down there, Ethernet connection, and you press the software trigger, what happens is the software, the way that the Ethernet stack works, is it will send trigger to camera 1, trigger to camera 2, and a trigger to camera 3. And now your T0 times on all your 3 cameras are misaligned. And this is just terrible for your scientific test. So what we've done is we've said there's another signal that we can output called pulse out. We can put it on the BNC of a selected master camera, and that is then connected to the same camera's trigger input, the next camera's trigger input, and the next camera's trigger input. This way, there will be a delay in the Ethernet transmission, but all 3 cameras would get a T0 time, perfectly aligned, perfectly scientific. So this is really very, very powerful. You know, when we talk to people like Torch and things like this, and other companies very similar, they get excited by this kind of stuff. The JBox enables this very function. We designed the JBox to have this function. So you take the IO1, which is the same as the BNC, and you connect it to the trigger input, and that's it. All 4 cameras are now going to get an aligned trigger input. This is just really nice, and yeah, that's my excitement over for the day, so that's good. So level out is another one. Again, how many times have we heard, I'd just like to be able to remotely control my lights on and off from the software? Well, now you can. So you can say, I'd like this to be low or high. You can put it into the enable input on the GSVTech lamp. You can switch your lights on and off from the software. Again, it's just really nice and really, kind of good way of doing things. On to the next slide, ready out. What is ready out? So a lot of cameras from our competition in the past have had a ready out signal, and this ready out signal has been integrated into some solutions out there, and it's just annoying when a customer wants to integrate our camera and the only blocker is not having a ready out signal. And so we've incorporated it into the GPIO. The camera, if the camera is recording, the signal is low. If the camera is ready to record, the signal is high. And so this enables us to use ready out. So if any of your customers in demonstration girls says, listen, I'm using an integrated solution for my automotive testing, do you have a ready out pin? The answer is now yes. So this is super useful. We've got status out. This is like a simple eye check, basically. So when the camera is not recording, the signal is low. You can connect it to like a bicolor LED or something, and the LED will be green. When the camera's recording, the signal will be high, the bicolor LED will go red, and you can see the status very easily. When the camera is saving, we alternate at a kilohertz. That bicolor LED now combines the red and the green to give you a different color, and so you can see very simple status. This can be used as all part of an automation system. And so again, very, very clear, very easy way of controlling the camera. Trigger out. When we launched Video Trigger, the first thing that people asked us was, can we send a video trigger signal out of the camera when there's been a video trigger to trigger other devices? And this is what we've done here. So if you software trigger a camera, if you video trigger a camera, if you hardware trigger a camera, all of those triggers are gated together and put out as a common trigger output. So you can output that to any other device, a 2 series or another 7 series that's not got video trigger, whatever you wish, okay? And then we also have had a couple of customers ask for the trigger to be synchronized so that the other cameras can be synchronously triggered to the master camera. And that is here. So instead of just sending the trigger event out immediately, asynchronously to the frames, this now sends it out synchronously to the next starting of a frame. Okay, so yeah, last few signals for GPIO. Record start in. This is for the scenario where you want to run the camera a little more hands-free and you don't want to necessarily have a CDU or a laptop connected to the camera. So what this will enable you to do is set it up. You connect your CDU or your laptop to the camera, you set up autosave, and what that means is that you can sit there and you can press a button to start recording, you can trigger the camera, and then the camera autosaves, and now you can then press a button to start the camera, press a button to trigger the camera, autosave. And so what this means is that that's a very manual operation, but also we've had a lot of universities say, you know what, we've got a test, an automated test sequence, and we want to run it over a weekend, and we can send the camera a please start recording command electronically as opposed to via an SDK with a C++. We can just send it a simple signal. We can then send it a trigger, and then it auto saves and we can be available for the next recording. And then also we have record, start, stop, in. And this is just an extension of the signal above. You can press one button to start, one button to stop. So you can use that to control. And there's some, you know, why didn't we just do record, start, stop anyway? There are some scenarios where just having a start is all you need. And so we've done both. Okay, so that is all on the GPIO.
I think you are going to run a dedicated Ask IX session on GPIO coming up, aren't you?
Well reminded. So basically, not just on GPIO, but on SILC as well, really. So the idea being is that I went through SILC a couple of years ago, and you know it's probably got a bit distant in people's minds. I'm going to be running another Ask IX later in the year with a lot more video evidence of where the benefits are using SILC. And so in that there will be both GPIO and SILC in a lot more depth. It'll be, you know, one of the more technical kind of presentations, but it'll give you real fuel for where the benefits lie. Okay, so to round up, we're hitting the 45-minute mark. So to round up, how to sell the new iSpeed 5. And, you know, I think we're all experienced people. We're all experienced with the competition. We know that the iSpeed 5 is often compared to the Photron Nova. We know that the Photron Nova is a lower price. But what we want to ensure is the way to sell the 5 is with this rich feature set. You've got so many more functions and features and specifications with the 5 series now that it's not apples for apples comparison. We've got so many more functions in this camera. We've really got to sell it on those features. So please, use the spreadsheet, the comparative spreadsheet that we've shown you before. You can dial in on that. You can get all your graphs and your bar charts and your comparison on the specification points. Here you can see we've got twice the resolution, twice the sensitivity, often more resolution at the higher frame rates, always more throughput with speed. The benefits are there and there to be pushed. And I think just going in and going, it's a high-speed video camera that's in the Nova range, will lose you a sale. And we need to make sure we're pushing the benefits. Here's a very quick list. Removable XSSD, Photron Nova, no, we have that, up to 2 terabytes. Internal SSD, Photron Nova, no, we have 8 terabytes. PC software, of course, both have that. But again, we feel that our software has got lots more functions, certainly for DIC, and it comes with the Excitex Pro Analyst packaging. So that's really, really beneficial here. And again, we need to make sure that the customer realize that they're going to get all these extra functions. CDUE control, mechanical shutter. Just so as you're aware, I've put it here, the Nova does have a mechanical shutter. It shows the importance of this as a sales point for us. Onboard battery, Photron, no. iFocus, SILC and GPIO. These are all features that we can sell above and beyond compared to the Nova. So it's not apples for apples. It really isn't. And that's why there is a price difference. So I think it's really, and one thing that was raised in the previous presentation is whenever we launch a product like this, we tell you the benefits of this product, and you then kind of go away and use this presentation to your advantage. But what I'm going to actually do is I'm making a sales presentation that will enable you to, it'll either be an aid memoir to you before going into a customer, if you wish. So it can show you the things that you should or may be talking about. Or if you are less experienced with the camera because you have a diverse range of products in your portfolio, you can actually use the presentation to walk through with the customer. And actually that helps the customer see, I didn't know you had DAC. I didn't know there was DAC interaction with this. And straight away you can click on the DAC and get dug into the detail. So I think that's going to be a real benefit, hopefully, to everyone here, and help you and help the customer. So hopefully with all of these additions and extra functionality, we will come out top. We will come out the winners, the successors. And, you know, if you need any assistance from any of the IX team, please get a hold of us. There's nothing more I love than someone ringing me up. Michael does it all the time, rings me up and says, I've got this customer, they're really interested in this subject, can we have a video conference on it? And I say yes, and we geek out with the customer. We talk tech with the customer, and I love that. That's one of the things I like doing. And so please, I'm always happy to assist where I can. And that really kind of rounds up the presentation. Oh, hopefully I've not lost everybody.
No, we're all still here. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, I've clicked it and it's all just disappeared off onto a different monitor. So.
Excellent, good stuff. Thank you for that, Nick, and thanks for going through that in such detail. Does anyone have any questions that we haven't covered as part of that presentation at all?
I've got a few, but I'm going to flesh them out in an email, I think, just to make them a little more explicit, because I need to think about the question before I present the question. But they're all good. This is I like it a lot. It looks like a cool device.
Thank you for that, Roy. If you send your questions through as an email, what we'll do, we'll get them obviously answered, and we'll distribute them to this group so everyone, has sight of those questions and the answers.
Yeah, it's good because, like this morning, we had questions thrown at us, and it enabled us to cover even more where people hadn't maybe thought about that scenario, and this allows us to flesh it out. And even more, if it's something we've not considered, it goes down on the list to be considered, and that's just as important as the rest. So yeah, we love all that stuff.
A real quick one. ITC based on?
So ITC basically is a custom design, and it really, and again, I'm being very open with the group here, okay? We've used Microsoft services for a number of years. That much is pretty obvious, I would like to hope. And every 2 years, Microsoft brings out a new one, and then we spend an awful lot of engineering time. Peter bangs his head on the desk and says, another thing that we've got to integrate. And then someone tries to use it for emails, and then someone plays a game, and then someone gets a virus, and then someone shreds it because it's got a USB port, and, just painful. And so we said, look, none of that. We're going to develop our own screen. It's got a very simple OS on there, and it connects directly to the camera with power. So it's all powered from the camera. And so, yeah, it's exciting. And I'll keep on about it because the brightness is huge. So, yeah.
I'm not sure much more application specific, so there isn't all of the redundancy that there is in a Surface tablet, etc. So
yeah, I mean, one of the first things in our own internal procedures when we get a Microsoft Surface is delete that bloatware, delete this bloatware, disable the Wi-Fi. We sit there for a couple of hours just deleting stuff, and in a hope to try and keep it sensible for lean control of the camera. And then, we honestly, truly found that even though we've disabled Wi-Fi, Windows will attempt to switch it back on again because they do love phoning home. And yeah, it's something that we're looking forward to getting away from.
The new ITC, Nick, harks back much more to the original CDU that we had under Olympus, doesn't it? And that was
right.
one of the primary reasons why people bought those cameras, was because of that CDU, or what will be now the ITC.
Yeah, a simple one connector connection. You walk up to the camera, you go clunk, it auto switches over to the screen, and then you can control the camera. You then disconnect, and now the camera's available on the network again. So yeah, super easy to use.
Cool.
Okay, just got a question through here, Nick, from Blair. Maybe this is one for Leah to answer, if she can do, if Leah's there. Can you run through when the new models will be shipping and when existing orders are changed to the new models? Leah, correct me if I'm wrong, but any orders that we've received to date for iSpeed 5 cameras will be shipped as a 508, 510, whatever it is that they've been ordered as. But any new orders that are received from today will ship as 509s, 511, 514.
Yes,
Is
we're
that
currently.
correct,
yes,
Leah?
that is correct. Yep, that is correct.
I think, Peter, you had a question.
Thank you, Nick, and for John too, and hello everybody. Two things on one thing on the ITC, Nick, is that the Microsoft Surface battery life decreases significantly, like to the point where if you charge it, you get 3 hours worth of charge now, and that was one of the big drivers for reinventing the ITC and going away from the Surfaces. So if you're doing a 5-hour photo shoot on a range somewhere and you don't have power, you lose the Microsoft Surface halfway through. And reflecting on what John just said too, the old iSpeed 3s were remarkably successful because of the CDU, and the market for the iSpeed 7s is really for people to run them off of PCs. They're high-end users, they're high-end cameras. We're hoping now with the new 5s to to resurrect interest in the ITC itself. I have to believe that it's going to be a game changer in that space itself.
I think it's the combination, Pete, isn't it, of the battery and the ITC means you can literally pick up the camera, take it to wherever you're going, right, sit there and record.
You plug it in and it works. You don't have to worry about charging it and everything else. I used to hate the Surfaces because after a few months of using them, the battery life was down to a couple hours, an hour or so, and then you'd have to charge it, and then you'd have to it was awful. So I'm really looking forward to the ITC. But one of the comments, Nick, I wanted to make, and you really hit on it, and I want the group to hear it, is that we put a lot of effort, a lot of time into inventing the iSpeed 5s and 7s as premium products. We just don't want to be a Me Too camera out there. And market factors drive people towards cost. Market factors people say, well, I only have, $23,000 to spend or $28,000 to spend. And, people, it pushes margins down, it pushes prices down, it pushes everybody down. And it's just not a good business model for everybody. The most profitable car company in the world is Porsche, top to bottom. They're the most profitable car company. Do they sell low-end products? No. They sell premium products, high performance, high feature set. They have a clientele that wants those things. And they've been lighting the world on fire for 30, 40, 50 years now doing that sort of stuff. And, this is a Porsche. There's no doubt that this is a Porsche in my mind. And if you want to try and compare it to a Volkswagen Golf, we're going to lose. There's no doubt we're going to lose. If the customer wants a Volkswagen Golf, and we try to come in with a Porsche. And if they're saying, well, I have enough money for a Nova 4 or Nova 6, and we come in and say, well, look at all the stuff that we're providing you. You know, you're trying to compare a Porsche with a Volkswagen Golf. And that's our business model for us. And Nick hit it right on the head. There's a lot of really powerful stuff in there. All those check marks on that slide are a business model. It's a business strategy for us. We want to be premium products for premium customers, and we charge a premium price. It's not, it's not a mystery, but it's going to be hard if a customer comes in and they just have a minimal budget. This is going to be hard to sell for them, but it's going to be a great sell for us to say, look at what you're buying. If you need a Porsche in your life, and believe me, I mean, go to China, right, John? Everybody's driving Porsches and Bentleys and things like that. That's where the market is. So I wanted to amplify that for the last little bit from what Nick put together here. Unfortunately, it took years for us to develop this stuff, and that's expensive, and we need to recover it. So,
I
sorry.
understand and concur completely. What that business model requires is for us salespeople to understand the applications where the feature-rich specifics apply themselves. So that the true differentiators of that extended feature set, where that becomes important and why it becomes indispensable to a new customer versus a Novo that can't do it.
Yeah.
So with a Porsche, you need speed,
Roy,
you need handling, etc.
Use the Porsche model. I mean, start with the engine, right? Start with the engine of the Porsche model. The Porsches have higher performance engines. We have higher performance sensors. Our sensors are HD. The Novas are not HD sensors. So let's start with the engine, right? What's the Nova is 1024 by 768 or 1280 by 1024 or something?
1024 square, yeah.
1024 square. We're HD. Let's just start with HD. That's the engine. And then you get inside the car and you look at the dashboard and you look at everything that's there. And we have this amazing SILC, the amazing GPIO stuff. I mean, I'm surprised, Nick, we had a customer. What's the customer, Nick, that wants to turn the camera on, trigger, turn the camera off?
We had a couple of universities that wants to do it. Yeah. And they bought the camera, and this is all remote control, and they can walk away in a weekend and come back and have 1,000 recordings done. Mindless for them. So what I worry about, Roy, and I think you're right on this, is if Fotron goes in, the first thing they're going to do is pitch price. They're going to say our Nova is less expensive than their 5 Series or less expensive than the Vios. Our Novas, their market strategy is we're going to sell budget cameras to budget-minded people. Okay, and if we go in and then try to sell a Porsche on top of a person who's got in their mind that they want to buy a Volkswagen, or in your case a Maserati, right, Roy? So if they, I'm just kidding. If they, if they want to buy a Volkswagen and they've got in their mind that they have Volkswagen budget and Volkswagen taste, you're not going to sell them a Porsche. It just doesn't happen, right? So we got to be the first people in and pitch Porsche. We got to pitch Maserati. We got to pitch Lamborghini. And say, if you want to be a Lamborghini, this is it, right? And then when Nova walks in the door and says, well, that's just an expensive camera. And like, yeah, but look at all the shit you get in that. So we can't be second in. We got to be the first one in. That's key. That's really important for us. But you're right. Let's find the market, nail the market down, and be first one in the door. And, all you have to write down is HD resolution, 500 horsepower. That's it. Then Nova, they just go, we're done. We can't do HD. We can't do 500 horsepower, right? Yeah, we have a car, we have 4 wheels, and we have, 4 doors and a steering wheel. But beyond that, can't do 500 horsepower. That's what we need to do. Sorry. Any other questions?
I'm late for my noon meeting, so I'm going to say goodbye and thank you to everybody and hello to everybody at the same time.
Thanks, Pete.
So, All right, guys. See you.
Thank you, Peter.
Before everybody goes, let Pete go off, but the website is live. The data sheets are on the website and available for people to download. Michael Q is in the process of populating the dealer portals. Directly after this call, Michael will email you with a copy of the presentation that Nick's just been through, and also the latest price list as well, which has got the pricing, all the price details on there for you. So that will be hitting you as soon as this call is finished. But as Nick said, guys, if you've got questions, particularly if you're going to customers, you're talking to customers, and you want to get Nick as the applications engineer involved, it's working incredibly well with lots of our customers. Don't hesitate. Nick's very happy to jump on a call with a customer and talk to them, about SILC or whatever else. Oh dear.
Michael puts up with me, put it that way.
Good stuff. All right, everybody. Great to see you all. See you all again very soon. More Ask IX sessions coming up, so look out for those, please. And look forward to seeing you again shortly. Thank you for attending.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thank
Thanks
you
a
very
lot.
much.
Cheers.